Hello everyone, Sheek here with another Transformers review, and today I'll be reviewing the Iron Trans IR-V01 Star Blade 16 and up. This is a third-party take on Star Saber. He is not 100% accurate to the original cartoon, which I've only seen a couple episodes of, but he is somewhat sized, but still remains true to the character to the best of my knowledge. Or best from what I can tell anyway. The box is a big box, as you can see on the back. High movable, high quality, big size, transform, and then it shows all the things you can do with him. And the posability, and if you look at his hand, right there, he is very articulated in the hands. And yes, those are some pretty cool poses that you can do. I don't know if I've tried all the poses myself, but there are some nice poses. And that's about it for the box. I would say let's go ahead and get him opened up. But as you can see, I already have him out of the box and already have him in his vehicle mode. He comes packaged in his robot mode, but I thought, hey, I'll start him off in his jet mode, because the jet spaceship mode, because I already had him in this mode for a while, and I was like, I need to do a review, and I don't need to explain myself to everyone. Anyway, his accessories, he does come with a long blade for his robot mode, a smaller blade for his smaller robot part, Alpha 1? I can't remember his name. I mean, I haven't watched anime enough to really know his name. Besides, he's usually as Star Saber anyway. Haven't seen much of just him before. Anyway, and then here's his gun. It's done in just a metallic gray, gunmetal gray or something. It does have a handle for Star Saber, and then a handle for his smaller bot. And then he has a couple of alternate hands for his smaller robot form. Yay, he can do jazz hands now. And then a longer handle for Star Saber. If you look very closely, you might see that slightly bent out of line, but that's because I had him in robot mode, he fell over, and snap went the handle. Anyway, hopefully he doesn't do that again. And then, last but not least, for accessories is this little set of wheels that goes in the back of this guy right here when he's separate. And what's really cool is that this one that you see right here did not originally come with this or these hands or okay, let's see, one last accessory. The Brain Master did not have this little guy either. Yeah, because I also saw another review of this guy where they failed to have the Brain Master and those other accessories. It's pretty much they all came together in one little bag, and that little bag had been left out. So I contacted TF Source. Was it TF Source or was it Big Bad Toy Store? I'll have to double check, but anyway, it was one of those two. Anyway, like I said in the past, I've had good experiences with them, but I was like, hey, didn't have it, and they're like, cool. And I sent a couple pictures just showing that wasn't there. I mean, obviously, if I was a very dishonest person, I could lie and just said I didn't have them when I did, but I didn't, obviously. And then they were so kind, ever so kind, as to send me a replacement. And I was expecting from them to say, hey, ship this one back, and then you can keep the one with the newer one. I was like, and I was going to be all cool with that. But no, they're just like, hey, our bad kind of thing, even though it wasn't exactly their fault. It's more manufacturer's fault for not including it. Like, hey, our bad, here, keep the one you already have. Do whatever you want with it, pretty much. And we're going to send you this other one. It's not going to be the, it's going to be a lower grade, so the box might have some damaging. Honestly, I didn't care as long as it had all the parts, which it did, which is kind of cool. Instead of just opening up that one and putting this one away, I was like, I'll just take the little baggie out, which I did, and have it with this guy, and then have that, and maybe sell him off saying, hey, he's missing those parts. I really don't know what I'm going to do with him yet. Anyway, yeah, that was very cool of them. I was not expecting that, and yeah, just And I'll probably add in the description which one it was. It was either Big Bad Toy Store or TF Source, but I think it was Big Bad Toy Store in this case. Anyway, they, like I said, they sent me out a new one, and they said if there's something wrong with that one, then yes, I might have to send it. I'm going to have to send that one back just so that they can be like, okay, so that I'm not just like trying to steal from them pretty much. But yeah, I very appreciate it, and I've rambled on long enough about that. So let's go ahead and take a look at him more closely. So as I said, here we have him in his big combined spaceship mode. He is quite big, as you can see, and you can pretty much see where everything is. You can see his arms, his legs, and then his combined head. There are some downsides to this mode. I mean, it does look really cool, but there are some things that feel a little flimsy. Okay, so first off, this is just held on by friction on this little panel that flips up right there, and you just slide it in. But if you get it to the far back of the helmet, it tends to stay on relatively well, but obviously over time, that's just going to become really loose and it's just not going to stay on. So let's just go ahead and set that off to the side for now. And then the rest of it, for the most part, is really sturdy. These wings, which is cool. I mean, you can do that, for example, like, I mean, it's not part of his vehicle mode, but you could say, hey, he's on a carrier, a spaceship of some kind, like a space carrier, and then he has his wings up. But then again, he's a transformer, so he's not like gonna just sit there in storage, but that is something you could do. You can also flip these down if you so choose. But the main, other than the, I'll get to that in a moment, but the other main gripe I have about his vehicle mode is that these, the front wheels, like these seem to stay up fairly well, but the wheels have a tendency to collapse down if you're not careful. The back ones aren't so bad, but the front ones are pretty loose. And also, it's not super flimsy, but I just say be very careful because this guy has a lot of die-cast metal, which is good. It's good in what they has. Die-cast makes it feel sturdy and strong, but like I said, you want to be careful that you don't slam him down these wheels. Haven't broken him, haven't slammed it down, but I have a feeling if you were to be a little forceful, even just a little, it might cause him to break. And then this guy right here, as you can see, he wibble wobbles a lot, and even according to the instructions, he's supposed to, I think he might be transformed, right? But it's hard to tell because it's just very difficult to get quite lined up in there. And since it's difficult to get them all up in there properly, it just feels very loose. I mean, if you just have him sitting like this, he actually sits in there fairly well, but as you can see, like I said, it's really wobbly. Other than that, this guy is really good in his combined vehicle mode. Now, you just remove him, you just kind of pull, and this is another thing, is that sometimes it just feels like you're gonna damage something if you pull him out, but you're just supposed to pull him out, there we are, and just get him out there. And then as you can see, this is pretty much just the whole body of Star Saber. Now let's go ahead and set that off to the side. Let's just go ahead and collapse those up like that, just off, so we can get a much better look at the individual smaller robot that's, and even technically the Brainmaster is the smallest form of this guy. So I mean, it's sort of like pretty much like a human-sized robot, if I remember right, that that is pretty much becomes Star Saber. So it's sort of like almost like that. If you've seen Men in Black 2, I do believe. Or might have been Men in Black 2, I'm pretty sure, where you see the little alien piloting the big old robot suit. That's kind of the vibe I get from this guy. Anyway, this is his Saber. I think that's Star Saber. I'm pretty sure this guy's name is Saber. This is pretty much his jet mode. It looks really cool. I mean, obviously you can see those are legs, those are arms, and that's his head. You can even see his face in there. If you get the lighting just right, you can see his face. So that's kind of interesting. He is a bit of a parts former. And then as far as the wheels that I was telling you about, get over here. Okay, the wheels, these go right here between his legs, if I remember right, or yeah, between his legs, but right in there. You just pull them apart. Maybe I should have just pulled it apart, or before putting it back together, put that in. But you tab it into his bottom of his waist or crotch, and then just tab it together tab together. I mean, it's not a perfect solution, but it is something to give him landing gear, because I guess they couldn't really put retractable ones right there. And then if you can get it to grip or get fingernail or something in there. I wish they made it a little bit more of like a hook for you to get your fingernail under, but nope. So bear with me. There we are. And there we have his front landing gear down, and he kind of sits pretty well. And this doesn't wibble wobble as much as it could, but I have a feeling over time it's going to loosen up. As you can see, it lifts up ever so slightly when you let it rest on the landing gear, but it looks like a nice little fighter jet, which I think is pretty cool. And then I guess I could just set this back on here. There we are, just get it right there. And yeah, this is Saber, I'm pretty sure, in his little jet mode. Obviously you can't change him easily, well, too easily from landing gear to no landing gear, but it is a nice little display option if you want to have him in his little jet mode. I mean, actually, it does make sense that he might have a storage mode for his body and robot, because if for whatever reason he just wants to walk around in his brain master form, he's gonna have to have somewhere to put his body. I mean, if he wants to, I guess, walk amongst the humans or something. Unfortunately, his leg joints are fairly loose, so I think it'd be very hard to get him to stand up on his own. But yeah, that's kind of the size difference. I guess if you want to see about the scale of a human compared to Star Saber, I'd say this is probably a fairly accurate comparison. So he is enormous. I don't know how big he is. I think there's a point where he meets Jinrai, or, well, it's not technically Jinrai because their robots became sentient instead of just being extensions of the humans that piloted them. But pretty much Power Master Optimus Prime, for those that aren't familiar with Jinrai, makes me wonder how big he would realistically be if you're going based on a jet, because jets are huge, and then that's enormous compared to this jet. I actually, honestly, if you've watched the Robotech anime, what's it called? Definitely in the Shadow Chronicles movie, but in the third anime, I can't get the name escapes me at the moment, but where I had Alpha and Beta fighters, I get similar vibes from this, although this does not have its own separate robot mode, so that's one thing that's a little bit different with that. Anyway, enough of getting sidetracked there. Let's go ahead and get Saber into his robot mode. Alright, generally, since the instructions, that's another thing I decided that I might start doing, is because he comes packaged in robot mode and all that. The instructions show how to get him into jet. So I'm thinking about maybe having reviews where I go from the opposite of what the instructions have, just so that if anyone's having difficulties going the opposite way, maybe watching this review can help them. Anyway, back to this. So one of the last things it has is having you put him in the cockpit. So obviously you would remove him, close this up, and then just go ahead and collapse the wings. Push these up or back, as the case might be. Put up the landing gear, and then split his legs so that we can remove the landing gear. Then you're going to just extend, collapse his shin guard thing, or part of his shin, knee, whatever you want to call it. It's a little too low to be his knee, but it's down there. So yeah, this needs to be flipped back in that case, since this is the front. And flip out his feet. Doesn't have any heel spurs, it's just the back thruster. Flip out his other foot. His arms out. And just pivot up the shoulder. Just pop that off. It's held in by some tabs. Be nice if it was like a squeeze and pull. I guess you could squeeze the sides a little bit because it does flex, but you squeeze and pull out. I might actually do that from now on, just so that it doesn't weaken it. So okay, let's see how well that works. So get that clipped back in place, and let's try it. Not really. It's just where it's located. So yeah, eventually these clips are just going to wear out. That's the only downside to this parts forming for this guy, is that eventually that's going to come loose and it's just not going to stay on in its jet mode. So that's definitely going to be a downside down the road. Not saying that this is a bad figure, that makes it a bad figure. It's just something to be aware of going down the road. And then his arms just accordion out, I guess, or rotate them out, and then his hands, which are just on a peg, has of alternate hands. Let's go ahead and grab at least. Yeah, let's go ahead and grab his hands. Let's make sure that's the right one. And there, splayed out hand. Just pivot in or rotate in. And yes, I know I'm just kind of skipping around a little bit. So that is just more of an alternate hand, not part of the transformation, because obviously this hand would not fit in there, so you definitely want to remove it if you were turning back into jet mode. Just pivot down, flip hand out, and you pretty much got him in his robot mode now. The last thing to do, or the first thing they'd have you take out when turning him into his jet mode, is to put the Brain Master in there, in his chest, because that's where they reside. So it's pretty much like almost like Gundam, if you think about it. I will admit, this is the first time I put this hand on here, and it honestly looks kind of goofy. Like, it looks like it's a little too big for his arm. Let me know if you guys think it isn't, because look at the size of those fingers right there, and then look at the size of those fingers right there. It's like completely huge, like really huge hands in comparison. And then let's go ahead and take his little sword, which, as you can see, is modeled after the front. I don't know if canonically in the anime it's supposed to be the actual front, which is a good thing that they did include a smaller sword, because look how big this thing is compared to him. Yes, you could make him wield that as a sword, but let's just go ahead and, oh boy, that's very stiff. I'm not going to put it all the way in, because I really don't want it to get stuck in the hand, so I'm just going to leave it like that. It does look really stupid and goofy, but yeah, either on... Now, as far as destroying the handle, like sanding it down, anything, I would probably try to somehow make the hole a little bit, just ever so slightly larger in his hand. And see, oh boy, like it got kind of stuck, even just partly in. So I'm not gonna put any further than this. But as you can see, you could have him pose with the sword, and I think I did it on the wrong side. Oh boy, well, I'm not gonna twist it around. I'm not gonna risk breaking it just to not show the screws. But yeah, put it on the other way, and then have his hand, I guess you have his hand splayed out and be like, I don't know, like, what is it, looking kind of cool where he has his hand splayed out and holding a sword, but with the hand being so large, it just looks really goofy. It kind of ruins the effect considering how small that hand is. Unless I'm really messing up and these are supposed to be alternate hands for Star Saber, which I highly, highly doubt considering how small it is compared to that. Like this right here, much larger arm, much larger hand, and they're extremely articulated, so there would be no point for an alternate hand. I just think they messed up a little bit and made the hand a little too big. Yes, it makes it very easy to see all the fingers and joints, which actually is kind of cool, but when it's really big and just looks really awkward, and all, okay, there we are. Oh, okay, that looks a little bit better, but it just still doesn't look quite right. It just, It's one of those things that you can do, but I'm probably not going to do it myself just because of how awkward it looks. And there goes the hand. Okay, got that back. Let's put that back on. And also, the more you swap them out, less likely those are probably going to stay on. So articulation, his head is not on a ball joint, but it is on a hinge right here. You can look up and down. He doesn't get any wiggly waggly because of that, but he also rotates 360. Arms go about that far out. Got 360 degree rotation there. Bicep swivel. About 90 degree bend at the elbow. Doesn't bend back at all. Wrist swivel, although of course eventually that might get a little too loose. And then waist swivel, although it seems kind of pointless considering this backpack part gets in the way. It's not really that much of a backpack, but it does get in the way. But you can, I guess, have just a slight pivot. I feel like there's a design faux pas on their part. I mean, I think it would just been better not to have a waist rotation at all than to have one that you can't really use. But then again, I guess you can get just a little bit out of it, so I guess it's not completely pointless. You can do a little more than the full splits. Legs can go forward that far. Back, not too far. And then over 90-degree bend at the knee, but that's also due to transformation. You could get more like that if you wanted to break his leg, so to speak. Thigh swivel, I think I already said that possibly. And no ankle tiltage, but you can move his foot because that is also part of transformation. And that's about it for his articulation. So yeah, that's about it for Saber. So let's go ahead and get him into his little combined mode. First thing, flip in his hands. Flip in hand. Collapse the arm. Collapse the arm. Collapse his arms down. Collapse down. Pretty much just, you're not getting back into plane mode, jet mode, but you are doing a lot of stuff. Close up his feet and just rotate up and hope that it doesn't come untabbed, and get it pushed down. There we are. So oh boy. Oh yeah, forgot about that. I'm gonna rotate these out, and hopefully I didn't break that one, just push it down. Yeah, whenever you do that, don't forget to mess with those, because you might actually break it if you're not careful. But yeah, get that down, clip back together if it unclipped. Still isn't quite how it's supposed to go. Let's see, maybe it isn't supposed to. Okay, it's supposed to be close up, I think, but I don't think it's supposed to go over his head, because obviously if it does, it's not going to, you're not going to be able to see his face. Okay, I think I got it figured out again. That's okay, so you just have it tilted. You don't have it fully extended, like collapsed where I had it. You just pretty much just get it folded up and press up against here, so it's at an angle like so. Doesn't click into place, just have it set like this, and you pretty much got him ready to go. And the last thing to do would be to put on the helmet, but I'm gonna wait for that while we get the rest of Star Saber transformed. Okay, so now we get to the big meat and potatoes of this review. First thing you want to do, close down that panel, and I guess it can go further down, and it's being annoying right now, I guess. Okay, so, oh boy, this is gonna be a little tall. Let's go ahead and flip this up, pan up. So you just flip up the landing gear, and I guess pan down again, flip in, flip in, close up, and now we got the landing gear put away. We can kind of start on the rest. Now moving back up to the top, just untab. There's just a lot of panels that tab in. There's not. It's just a lot of tabs, really. Come on, untab right here. So he's relatively straightforward, honestly. It's just getting everything lined up perfectly, getting him into his jet mode. Lift this panel up, fold down, pivot in, and then you pretty much got his back done. And then as far as this right here, just make sure that that's flush. And then yeah, if you see these two tabs, they go into those two slots. It doesn't really, it's just friction, pretty much everything about this guy. And then yeah, this should click into place, and there we see all nice and flush. And now we're pretty much free to mess around with the legs and arms without fear of damaging any of the tabs that hold them into place. Okay, so as you can see, his legs are just pretty much, that's what you do to get them mostly back to where they need to be. Flip that panel back out. So oh yeah, just I did a while back get into the Haslab project for Star Saber. Pre-ordered 2 of them because I was like, hey, this isn't as expensive as Unicron, and after seeing how much those went for, it's like, now I have the extra money. Okay, untab right here too. And no, I'm not being a scalper or anything like that. I'm just, and yeah, sometimes that pops off because that is a really tight tab. Untab right there. Okay, but I decided to order 2 of them. So either A, I can sell 1, or B, since it has 2 robots in it, not just, well, 3 if you count Saber and all that, but, and also the target mat. So it comes with a lot of stuff anyway. So I can have Leo, what is his name? There we are. Anyway, I guess it's supposed to be, I don't know, I don't want to spoil anything, but then again, I don't even know for a fact because I haven't watched the show that far in. Anyway, back to this. You want to rotate at the thigh, rotate at the knee. There we are. And then for the feet, you just want to flip out. Now the feet, you'd think that's where most of the die cast would be. There's actually not that much die cast in the feet themselves, but it's in like up here, like in the legs and thighs. Like if you see this black, shiny black, that is where most of the die cast rests. Not saying that it shouldn't be in the, that should have to be in the feet, but it would feel a little bit sturdier having more weight down there. But considering this guy has no ratchets, he has no ratchets. That's one of the downsides, is that with all this weight, eventually those friction joints aren't going to be able to cut it anymore. So that's also why I really haven't transformed them too terribly much, is I just don't want to wear out the friction joints. Anyway, yeah, you pretty much just extend his feet out, and as you can see, there is also a hinge in there, which is also metal, to give you like a little bit of ankle tiltage, although because of the plastic on the sides, it's pretty much non-existent. Alright, okay, now we got his feet done, or pretty much his legs. Okay, let's pan up again, and if you didn't see it the first time, rotate at the thigh, and then rotate at the knee, and there we are. Got his lower body done, got his back done. Now all that's left really is the arms. And speaking of, like I said, got a little distracted with the Haslab project thing, but what I was wanting to say is, with all the white that this character has, I really, really, really hope they fix the yellowing problem, because it's one thing like on Motor Master where it's just a little bit of yellowing on some of the gray plastic was definitely annoying, but not enough to be like, okay, this is horrible, I have to get another copy that does not have this problem. Anyway, but Star Saber, that's going to be a serious issue if it's a lot of yellowing. Okay, so you just rotate this up like that, and then you close this panel up here. Hopefully you saw that. Now I'll make sure you see it on the other side. Close that up. It should click into place. Flip that down. And then let's flip that up just a little bit more. Man, this is really tilted up. This guy is pretty tall. Rotate up and out. Rotate. There we are. And then you want to flip that into place. Close down and clip. Flip down. And that's pretty much it. Now we just need to get his hands out and install Saber into the giant mech suit that we're revealing. And then you just want to open up these panels and flip his hands out like so. And also there is a little bit of a problem sometimes of getting his hands just right so they'll fit into the slot. That's another downside of having super articulated hands on these guys, because then sometimes it's just like, if you don't have it just right, you're gonna pop something off, damage something, and that's no bueno. Alright, so here we have that one hand. You can't really see the other hand because, you know, big. Let's go ahead and zoom out just a little bit. Pan down ever so slightly. But here we can see how articulated these hands are, like insanely articulated. And the splay is astounding, like excessively so. But it looks really cool. although they're not super strong, so obviously you're not going to be able to do anything too crazy with them. But it's pretty cool. I definitely like it. Although only on larger figures like this. This about this size and larger, I'd say fully articulated hands. But when it comes to, I don't know, especially someone this size, but that's not really going to happen usually. But when it comes to smaller figures, no, not fully articulated. Maybe hands that open up like this, but not that, because it's a nightmare, in my opinion, trying to mess with those, and especially if they don't come with alternate hands that aren't super articulated, because that is just a nightmare dealing with. Okay, so getting him in here, it can also be not exactly a nightmare, but a real pain. But if you do manage to get him in here properly, he does sit in here fairly well. As you can see, he's mostly in there, and then he just clicks into place. And he does click into place, but that doesn't mean that he's in there, because as you can see, he still wobbles a little bit. Let's see. I'll just go ahead and move him down just a little bit, pan this down. Let's see if I can get him to sit a little bit. Okay, there we are, getting Star Saber to sit. Okay, so got him in there. But as you can see, it kind of rocks a little bit, but it's not like you're going to be having a lot of force at all on this that would cause it to flip out or for him to come loose. But now one thing that is kind of goofy, seeing this tiny head on this huge body, which it's kind of comical, but I mean, that's pretty much what it is. And then we take this head right here, this helmet, rotate them up, and then you can flip out the antennas. You can go out really extreme, or you can have them pretty much straight up, but of course you want them at slightly an angle, and then you just rotate the face out, and you don't drop it like I just did, and then you place it over his head, which can be a little tricky to get to fully cover his little face right there. As you can see, you can still see his head. Do believe it does kind of go further down, but it is just really hard to do, and obviously you don't want to break anything. That's the only downside, I think, to this design. It's been a while since I looked at the Haslab video for their Star Saber, but I'm not sure if it goes, I don't think it goes over this. I think it's something that flips out and it's a separate head, which honestly I prefer that, but I can't remember. I honestly don't know. It might be a helmet too, but I think theirs is a little bit better if I remember right. But as you can see, you can still see his mouth. I think at one point I did manage to get it transformed with it further in there. It's just very tricky to get just situated just so. But if you get it just right, you can mostly cover the face. Although you can probably just see like his chin underneath. But if you have his head tilted down ever so slightly, generally speaking, it kind of hides it from view. But that's my biggest gripe, I'd say, about the combined robot mode. So let's go ahead and get him stood up again. And man, these joints are super stiff. I mean, it's really good for now, but I mean, honestly, I wouldn't mind too much if they loosen up just a little bit, because man, they are so stiff. All right, back up. For articulation, the head has the same articulation as the main robot. I'm not really going to show off too much. Besides, if I do that, it's probably going to just move the helmet out of alignment. The arms can go out not terribly far, really, because that would get in the way of Saber. So they can only go out about this much. There might be a way to finagle it a little bit, like if you open up this panel right here. But that's about as much outward motion as you can get. They can do a full 360 bicep rotation. Let's see, about 90-degree bend at the elbow. Wrist rotation, no wrist bend, but the fingers are. Like I mentioned, fully articulated. You can slam quite a bit, but yeah, lots of finger articulation. You can even make him do obscene gestures if you want, because he's pretty much almost as articulated as a normal human hand. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, so let's get that in a somewhat standard pose. And then he does have ab crunch, so you can actually ab crunch fairly well. And let's get that back. And then he does have waist swivel. These panels can flip up on all sides, and then we can get a good look at that solid metal joints. Legs can go forward that far, so you can do a high kick. Legs can go back. They don't really go back much, so this panel lifting up is kind of pretty much pointless. And he can do more than the full splits and thigh, well, knee rotation, but it's pretty much thigh. But you also, no, I guess not. So, oh yeah, of course you do. Yeah, it's just very, very stiff. You have, ouch, thigh rotation, knee rotation, and oh boy, over 90-degree bend knee at the knee, and you can get it pretty far. And as you can see, there's a lot of metal on this. Oh boy. And it does take a little bit of exertion, especially when you're holding it up in front of a camera rather than holding it right in front of you, where you're not really having to exert yourself. And also that has a tendency to come, the back panel has a tendency to come loose. All right, I really need to get a taller tripod, or one that can raise a little bit higher without tilting at a really weird angle. Okay, so yeah, that's about it for his articulation, which I'd say is pretty good. Really good, honest. Well, I mean, considering that, you know, you have to have a robot in here, and it's gonna be hard to get shoulders like this to really go angle up that much. It's not that bad. I'm not gonna complain too much. Now for his final accessory, his sword, which, as you can tell, right now is just the front of a of the jet. So you just flip this up. Okay, let's see. Yeah, flip that panel up, and then if you're wanting to use the short blade, which when I first broke this, thought I'm just gonna have to use a short blade from now on, and I was really sad about that, because that double handle grip is in the show, and I think that's what he usually uses, and it just looks weird, in my opinion, if you have just the small sword handle like that. I mean, he can one-hand it, obviously, but and then this is kind of cool. The blade just slides in there, and you just close this up around it and just press together. And now we have Star Saber's saber. The Star Saber, I guess, or the Star Saber saber, which just sounds really goofy. So let's just say it's his Star Saber, or just his saber. But that rotates into his hand, and as you can see, it only fits in one hand, and since it's such a long sword, it seems kind of weird that it would just be a short handle, but that's if you don't want to do more parts forming, which, considering how much parts forming he does already, I mean, it's not like the worst I've seen, but I'm not going to gripe too much, because he is pretty much a robot going into a bigger robot going into a giant robot, sort of like Fortress Maximus, but not on that scale, of course. And then this right here, if you look in the inside, the palm of his hand, it does have the groove for the sword hilt to slide into, so you don't have to worry so much about him holding it tightly to keep it from spinning freely. And for the gun, I probably should have showed off Saber holding the gun, and then showed him holding the gun. So I think this is, I honestly don't know, maybe this is meant for going into the vehicle mode. I really don't know now, because it looks like it's meant to, no, but then that's a little too small. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure this is for Star Saber, it's just it doesn't slide in there really, so you just have to close his hands around it. And I guess it kind of works, but not really. But it's a good thing he's known for his sword rather than guns. I mean, obviously he probably uses the gun in the show, or uses a gun in the show, but he's known for his saber. I mean, it's in the name, Star Saber. or at least in this one, Star Blade. But Blade is still in this guy's name. He's a swordsman. That's what he's known for, being a swordsman. Anyway, last thing before we wrap this up, I'm going to flip this back in, and then this clips on around the base of the initial handle. Let's see if I can get, maybe it's this way. Yeah, it's this way, I'm pretty sure. Come on. Just slide. It should just slide. There we are. Slide in. Okay, get it off. And that, it broke off again. Okay, so I guess I'm going to just have to swap it out with the spare one. Use the other one for spare parts. Yeah, that's what I hate about some plastics, is that super glue, no matter how much you glue it, seems to not hold it in place, at least not very well. But anyway, I'm just going to show it off anyway. You'd slide that in like that, and then you'd close it up. So there's no way that this would have stayed in. It pretty much looks the same. It's to extend the handle so that, hey, he has a double sword grip. And as much as I wanted to show that off, I don't really have the other one in easy access. But as you can see, you do have an extra handle length for his other hand to hold. The only downside is with doing the double grip, you usually have to go overhead for it to even work, which isn't the worst thing ever. It's just not how I would prefer to do it. But yeah, that's about it for the Star Saber, or Star Blade. Yeah, that's about it for the Iron Trans. Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, Iron Trans Star Blade. And of course, we all know this is Star Saber. But if you like this review of a third-party version of Star Saber and you'd like to see more, please click that like and subscribe button to see more. And until next time, have a good one, everyone.